What is up, guys? I'm Milad, and this is
Bobby.
And we are coming to you with another episode of Harsh Truths. You guys came to our last week video and gave us a bunch of support, so we appreciate that. Now, this week we decided to go with something a little bit different. We are trying to do a little bit more of a debate style type of topic. This isn't really something like, in the present news, but we thought, why not bring up this topic and see if we could hash it out a little. So without further ado, I will pass the mic over to Bobby, and he will propose the question. So let's go.
Okay, so the question I had for this week was, what is the general impact of social media on sports? And when I say social media, I'm also talking about the media as a whole, like ESPN, Fox Sports, even newspapers, if you want to include that, like any form of media, if that makes sense. My general position is negative, so I wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think it's negative or positive.
And I'll be arguing the opposite of that, saying that it's positive, actually. So, now, should I start it off then? Or do you have... Okay.
Go ahead, share your thoughts first.
This. So, first of all, when talking in terms of media, I don't think the media should be included in this conversation because media has always been around. So that's not something that's changed over time. Maybe the amount of media has increased, but newscasters, sports talk shows, all that stuff has always been around. People have been printing newspapers about sports for forever. So nothing's really changed in terms of that. But now the real question comes down to social media. That's where everything comes to it. And I think it actually has a positive impact on someone's sports career. Because first of all, the first positive, especially in terms of NBA, we're going to be talking about in terms of NBA mainly here. But the first impact it has is it gets you on the map as a young athlete. Now, social media, we could be talking about in terms of comments and people talking about other players. But when it comes to young hoopers, a good way to get yourself on the map and a good way to get attention for yourself is social media. You posting good clips of yourself on Instagram or YouTube can help get scouts to come check you out because they have some footage of you and they have some social media presence of you able to be there for you so that they can actually get a way to check you out without actually really having to come to you. And then if you have social media, once things blow up a little bit, that actually helps you out too. So you can, make a name for yourself. Like people like Bronny or Michael Porter Jr. or other younger athletes who post a ton of sports basketball clips on social media. Zion especially, that's the big one. Zion built his name off of social media. And thank you for helping me out there. You gave me actually a really good example.
But wait, before you go on, I'm kind of confused. How do you define media then? Because I know you said media has been around forever. Things like that.
I'm talking about talk show hosts and First Take and Undisputed or any ESPN talk after post-game analysis and stuff like that. And newspapers even, like you mentioned, have always been there. Lakers have lost blah blah blah, or Lakers are going downhill, or this player, is he as good as he says? And I guess you could include in terms of media that now we have computers and electronics and stuff like that. We have media articles posting online and stuff like that, which we didn't really have before. But the thing is, those have actually been around for a while, but I'm guessing most of the arguments you'll probably make are going to be from more recent time, because that's when social media problems have been popping up a bit more in terms of Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan and their mental health when it comes to the NBA and social media and just your perception of people towards you as a player. And so I think social media can actually be a very positive tool for an NBA player if used properly. So that's what I have to say right now. Let me hear your end and then I'll rebuttal to that.
So I understand what you're saying. I think my issue is I get this feeling, especially the last, 5 years, that a lot of athletes are more concerned with their image. if that makes sense. Like 10 years ago, I don't think people were as concerned about their image as they are today. And I think the way the media has evolved, it's much more in your face, it's much more aggressive. Like, it's become a part of our lives now, every day. If
Now,
that makes sense.
is that social media that's causing that, or the fact that the game has grown? Because the game's gotten a lot more attention today than it did 20 years ago. Well, I mean, MJ, yeah, of course, was carrying the league during that time. But, you know, like, the league has grown a lot. It's got a lot more viewership. It's got a lot of more attention.
I think it's hand in hand. I think you can accredit a lot of, like, just sports in general, like national sports in general, success on, like, the evolution of media, being able to expose it more to a lot of people around the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. Because, you know, especially since, like, you're more likely to watch a basketball game if you have, like, if you hop on Instagram and you see a Steph Curry highlight of him splashing threes, or a Giannis highlight of him, you know, running down the court and, like, dunking the basketball on other people. Since you see that, it makes you more hyped to actually watch the game. You're like, damn, I should watch them play. I should really check them out. I want to see Steph Curry in person, or, like, you know, and that actually grows the NBA. So, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So one specific thing that I wanted to bring up that I think kind of bothers me, and I think it bothers a lot of people as well, is narratives that the media establishes before the season starts.
Okay.
So one specific narrative that's always, every year, this is established, is who's going to be MVP by the end of next season. And James Harden has, I don't know if you've seen the clip of this on Instagram, but there is an interview where he does a podcast, and he firmly believes that the MVP is already predetermined, like picked by the media.
By the media, yeah.
To me, this is an issue. Now, the MVP this last season was Giannis, right? And
yeah,
he rightfully so. You know, his numbers back it up. His team performance backed it up. You could say they went deep in the playoffs. Did they? I think they had the best record in the East. Did they?
Giannis, yeah. The Bucks did.
The Bucks. It was either the Bucks or the Raptors. I don't remember which one.
No, the Bucks had number one record. Yeah.
Okay. But to me, it was James Harden that deserved MVP, in my opinion, because of how low the Rockets, if you remember, I think the first half of the season they dropped to, was it 6 or 7? I think, because Chris Paul was hurt as well.
Yeah.
And James Harden brought them back up to I think a top 4 seeded team at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they were like a number 4 and number 3 seed. Yeah.
To me, James Harden should have been MVP that season. But the fact that the media kept pushing this narrative since last summer that Giannis is going to be MVP, that kind of bugs me. That's why I think media has had a negative impact with narratives. Okay. They force these stories on us, and I don't think it's fair. Okay. So this is one example of that.
So just to get things straight a little bit. So what you're saying is that you believe Harden deserved MVP. And on top of that, you feel like the media pushed Giannis's agenda to push him to become MVP.
Not even push. They made him MVP. It's like a campaign for him.
Okay. So here's my issue with that. Now, for the history of the NBA, usually when it comes to the MVP award, most of the time, it has been the best player on the best team.
Yeah.
Now, the year before, what was the Rockets' record? Which ranking did they have the year before?
I think they were still a top 3 team.
No, they were the number 1 team. They had the best record in the NBA the previous season.
Right. They were a top 3 team, yeah. The best record.
Yeah. They had the best record. Mm-hmm. That's the season Harden won MVP.
Right.
This season, Bucks have the best record in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Giannis won MVP. The seasons where Golden State was getting the best record in the NBA, they had Steph Curry as MVP. Now, usually most valuable player will go to the number 1 player on the number 1 team. That's generally like the pattern you see. There's been some seasons where even people would argue that Kobe Bryant deserved MVP, but his team was the number 8th seed, even though he was outperforming like pretty much the whole league. He was arguably the best player in the league at the time. But since he wasn't the best player on the best team, he was the best player on his team, but he wasn't the best team, that held him back from getting MVPs. So you could say the media pushes it, but it would be a different story if the media pushed Giannis's MVP status and they were flipped in terms of their standings. So there's that.
I get that, but it still doesn't change the fact that if you go on ESPN right now, they're already talking about a certain player becoming MVP.
Who do you think they're talking about for next season?
I answer, and whoever they focus on is most likely going to become MVP, and I kind of have issue to that. I think that to me is, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right to me.
Do you feel like there's already an MVP being pushed for next season right now?
Absolutely.
Who do you
LeBron
think?
James.
Okay. I feel like I've been feeling some Kawhi too.
Maybe. Actually, I haven't heard Kawhi as much. I've heard LeBron. LeBron's probably the one I've heard a lot on ESPN recently. But LeBron's always in that conversation.
Yeah.
We'll see if that continues.
That makes sense. And this one's also because LeBron had that little off season the past year. So that's why everyone's pushing for that King LeBron to come back. And then, I don't know if you noticed the video Kobe made of his challenges for the next season. But he challenged Giannis to win a championship. That's his challenge for Giannis. And then he challenged Kyrie Irving to win MVP. So I don't think
that's happening.
I don't think it's happening either. But since you're mentioning media, and Kobe has pretty big sway in the NBA world, I think maybe we should keep an eye out on how much the media portrays Kyrie Irving in terms of winning an MVP award this next season.
The reason why I don't think he's going to win is because the media treats him as like a bad teammate.
Yeah.
I can see that. And that's another point to me in terms of how the media negatively impacts sports world. We're already placing labels on guys that don't deserve to have labels like this. Like, we don't know the full story of Boston, right? I mean, we know bits and pieces of it. We know what's being told from us from various sources that claim to know. But at the end of the day, we don't know what really happened in that locker room. And I don't think, not to get like off topic, I don't think Kyrie Irving deserves like the media slander he's getting. Right now, what's his reputation, do you think, right now?
Right now, just a crazy handles point guard who's kind of selfish and not a great teammate.
And not a good teammate, right? Mm-hmm. That's the narrative. And we can like broaden this topic on teams in general. Like last season, the Lakers, if you remember, the narrative for the Lakers was generally negative, if you remember. Yeah.
They wanted the Lakers to fail.
Negative. It's like every little mistake would be magnified, right?
And that's what I think Lonzo had to deal with a lot during his first season as a Laker. You know, like anything he did, everything he did. He was the number 2 pick in the draft, and the media portrayed him a million times more than Markelle Fultz. And more than Jason Tatum. Even more than Donovan Mitchell. And, like, they analyzed every single piece of his game. And, like, it's the LA spotlight. But that's the media that's pushing him. And, like, you could tell it took a toll on his mental health during the season. And, like, his confidence in his game.
Yeah. But there were far worse mistakes that a lot of smaller market teams were making that the media never highlights.
Yeah.
So I just feel like in today's society, it's almost like a reality show to me. The sports world, with the relationship of the sports world with the media. It's like a reality show to me.
Yeah, I mean, they got to make it entertaining, you know?
But do they? Like that? I don't think they do.
I mean, they're trying. I think that's why. I think they're trying to make it entertaining because that's how they're going to get more viewership. It's about the money in that sense now.
But it's already entertaining enough. It's the sport.
I know, but you know, people. You know how people are. They can't get enough money, so the NBA is going to view it in terms of like, oh, you know, we'll let a little fight go here and there. We'll let a little bit this and that go. We'll put our foot down so that they know that we're a good league and we actually do stuff to protect our players. Yeah. But we kind of like that this happens because it stirs up social media. Like, remember the Brandon Ingram, Rajon Rondo with Chris Paul thing earlier in the season last year?
And you know? And you can point to that was the start of like the Lakers narrative that they're a negative franchise. They're unstable.
Yeah.
We could point to that. that's the beginning of that. And I don't think that's fair, to be honest.
I don't think that would be fair either. Yeah.
There are far worse teams than NBA that were doing pretty questionable things than the Lakers. But we have to, highlight the Lakers for some reason.
But that's always been happening. Like, the Lakers have been, like, the stable franchise of the NBA where everyone points their attention to the Lakers.
But that's the problem. It shouldn't be that
It's
way.
like the Cowboys. The Cowboys, whether they're good or not, they're like the centerpiece team of the NFL that everyone points the finger to.
Exactly, but it shouldn't be that way. I feel like if you're going to push narratives, spread it out at least.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. Like, but the thing is, like, how do we do that? Because, like, like, how much media is going to push the Charlotte Hornets?
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, too. Why not talk about the Hornets and how bad of a franchise? They're probably one of the worst franchises in the NBA.
I agree with you, but, like, they try to do it for clicks, and they know there's more Lakers fans than Hornets fans. How many people are going to watch a Charlotte Hornets video versus any form of a Lakers video? It's pretty much clickbait.
That's true. And that's the issue. We don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's pretty negative in general, the media's relationship. And I think more athletes, they're already conscious of it, but I think they're going to be more, how do I say this? I think more athletes are going to be very careful on social media in general and how they act.
I think so too, because especially since there's been so many people going back and taking old tweets and old Instagram posts of players and bringing them back to the spotlight.
Yeah.
But I also think another good positive thing about social media is the brotherhood it enables. Like
what?
Look, let me explain here.
What do you mean?
Let me explain here.
Brotherhood?
Maybe brotherhood's not the right word to use.
No, it's not.
But now you notice that players are complimenting each other more. Players are supporting each other more. Like, people don't text as much nowadays in terms of, like, if there's someone you don't know that well where you're like, okay, we're cool, but, like, I don't know them, like, crazy well, so I'm not going to text them once something happens in their life.
Yeah.
But, if you see a social media post, you give them a like, you give them a nice little comment saying, yo, congrats, whatever, this and that.
Yeah.
I think I've been seeing a lot of players on social media who will comment on other players' stuff who are from completely different teams, in support of them. And, like, one example I could give here that I've been seeing a lot lately, even though it's been kind of, like, jokingly manner, it's been between Kyle Kuzma, Jason Tatum, and Donovan Mitchell. If you see all their Instagram posts, there's always either Kuzma commenting on one of theirs, Donovan Mitchell commenting on one of theirs, or Jason Tatum commenting on one of theirs. They have, like, a whole group chat going. So, like, that was never heard of, like, in the earlier days. Like, and I think it started with social media because they were able to, like, poke fun and have a little fun with each other on social media, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on their, like, Instagram story, where they're able to, like, say stuff about each other, kind of joke around with each other. They're like, Kyle Kuzma was hopping on Donovan Mitchell's Instagram Live last year. And was saying, oh, hey, rookie of the year, this and that. And Donovan Mitchell would go back and do the same thing to Kyle Kuzma. If social media never existed, I don't think Kyle Kuzma and Donovan Mitchell would have created, like, a friendship like they have today. So I think it's helping build a support system between players. But you could also argue the opposite, where, like, if anything goes wrong, someone might say the wrong thing about another player, and then all of a sudden people go crazy about it, just like what happened with Andrew Wiggins and Steven Jackson this past season, where Steven Jackson, I think, called him, like, lazy or something. He said
Jimmy
something.
Butler too.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy
But, like,
fiasco.
Jimmy Butler, I don't think said much on social media. I think that was just the media took that film. But, like, I know Steven Jackson posted on social media, and Andrew Wiggins responded back on social media. So, like, they kept going back and forth with that. But, yeah.
I get what you're saying. You're saying that it shows. I think you're saying how social media kind of brings unity.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What about Carmelo Anthony?
Oh, dude, everyone loves Carmelo Anthony on social media.
It doesn't matter. I'm talking about career-wise. The media destroyed Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. That's actually a great example to me, because that guy has no work. He's unemployed because of the media. So you can't tell me that the media is positive when it could take away your career.
But it can also create careers. Like, you see,
That's
like,
true.
it's put a lot of high school kids on the map. because they're able to put their mixtapes online, high school mixtapes, and stuff like that. At least Carmelo Anthony was able to have an NBA career to begin with. You know,
but was it fair that his legacy got tarnished by the media?
You see,
like to me, the media is a slippery slope to me, and I don't know what to do exactly to balance it necessarily. But I think it's important that people understand in general that the media today is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it could be your best friend or your biggest enemy. I think that's kind of what we're getting in terms of a conclusion between this question, is that you can use it very wisely and it can help you a lot, or you can use it and it can absolutely destroy you.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, thinking about Carmelo, the way he's perceived now on for example, platforms like YouTube, people making videos on him, negative videos on him, and ESPN in general, where I remember we had like Chauncey Billups talk, not too highly of him. I just think that isn't fair. And I don't know what to do exactly about that, but I think there has to be some sort of lid and boundary. And I think the media has been crossing the boundary these past couple of years. Carmelo's an example of that.
I think the media feels like they have some sort of a privilege. I'll agree with you in that terms. Like, they feel like they are... Like, they can step over those boundaries, like you said. Like, they can do whatever they want. Then they feel like the NBA and the players owe them something. Because, like, I think there's this whole persona that's going around in the NBA where, like, oh, we're the reason you're making millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So we should be able to absolutely humiliate you without any repercussions because you're making so much money. And I think that's kind of like the type of thing the media is carrying, which is pretty toxic.
It is extremely toxic. And I think we should highlight also the players that have used social media very wisely. Not just social media in general. I think LeBron James, you have to highlight, is somebody who's used it masterfully.
He's one of those ones who used it wisely or masterfully.
Is masterfully a word?
I have no clue.
We made up a word.
Fine. Masterfully. Jesus. But yeah, you're right. He used it wisely, and it's not like he doesn't use it. He actually uses it a lot and uses it wisely.
That's his brand. It's his market. Mm-hmm. And that kind of connects back to what I said, how a lot of players are more focused on their brand than their overall, I think, game, in my opinion.
Because you kind of have to sell yourself as a player.
Yeah.
Part of being a player is like, I think I was listening to Stephen A. Smith talk about this morning, like, Kobe Bryant was absolute box office. His personality, his mentality, even though it was sometimes separate from his game, like, that's what sold tickets. Like, the fact that he was the Black Mamba, that he had Mamba mentality, like, that was box office. As much as he was a big-time basketball player, he was one of the greatest performers this NBA's ever seen.
But did he have to market himself? I don't think he did. I think he just
marketed himself as the Black Mamba. That's marketing.
Did he market himself that? Or
I think him going on the court, doing the little things where he would put his jersey in his mouth, like, he never needed to do that.
But that was his game.
His lower jaw. Yeah, that became part of his game, but I also think that's a form of marketing, too.
But I don't think he intentionally, went out and marketed himself. I think he just played, and he was so good that people marketed it. But now, rookies coming in are more focused on marketing than their game. Does that make sense?
It's a tricky question. It's hard to tell sometimes.
I don't think Kobe came into the league with 500,000 followers already, right?
Well, I mean, there was no such thing as followers when he came into
or whatever was Facebook or whatever, or newspapers, or
there was
newspapers as if it was 100 years ago. Whatever form of media,
followers on newspapers.
On newspapers, whatever form of followers he had, it wasn't as immense as it is now. What I'm trying to say is,
for sure.
I'll take Zion as an example. He had 1 million followers on Instagram coming in. That's marketing. He marketed himself.
Yeah.
Instead of playing instead of focusing on just letting his game do the marketing itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In the NBA, I'm talking about, not high school.
Yeah.
Or college. So that's my point on that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, yeah, that we kind of hit the 25-minute mark right now.
You want to end it here?
Yeah, my camera stopped recording and I had to restart recording it, but, you know.
When?
Like 2 seconds ago. So, there's that.
Should we just do it out? You can do the ending, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do the outro here, you know.
Okay.
All right, guys. This was the episode of second. Let me do that again. All right, guys. This was the second episode of Harsh Truths, and I hope you enjoyed this debate style we had over here today. And if you guys did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and there will be a SoundCloud link in the description. I should say that more in the beginning of the videos, because if you reach this point of the video, you probably don't need the SoundCloud link. But
was this a debate? I feel like we agreed a lot.
We agreed a lot, but we also like started differing, and we went back and forth and tried to counter each other's arguments. But nonetheless, you know, we're done here. Hope you guys are having an amazing day, and this was an episode of Harsh Truths. Peace.
Peace out.